The Great Wall of China is a series of fortifications that were built across the historical northern borders of ancient Chinese states and imperial China as protection against various nomadic groups from the Eurasian steppe. Several walls were built from as early as the 7th century BC, with selective stretches later joined by Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Little of the Qin wall remains. Later on, many successive dynasties built and maintained multiple stretches of border walls. The best-known sections of the wall were built by the Ming dynasty. Apart from defense, other purposes of the Great Wall have included border controls, allowing the imposition of duties on goods transported along the Silk Road, regulation or encouragement of trade and the control of immigration and emigration. Furthermore, the defensive characteristics of the Great Wall were enhanced by the construction of watchtowers, troop barracks, garrison stations, signaling capabilities through the means of smoke or fire, and the fact that the path of the Great Wall also served as a transportation corridor. The frontier walls built by different dynasties have multiple courses. Collectively, they stretch from Liaodong in the east to Lop Lake in the west, from the present-day Sino-Russian border in the north to Dao River in the south, along an arc that roughly delineates the edge of the Mongolian steppe, spanning 21,196 kilometers today. The defensive system of the Great Wall is generally recognized as one of the most impressive architectural feats in history. The Chinese were already familiar with the techniques of wall building by the time of the spring and autumn period between the 8th and 5th centuries BC. During this time and the subsequent Warring States period, the states of Qin, Wei, Zhao, Qi, Han, Yan, and Zhongshan all constructed extensive fortifications to defend their own borders. Built to withstand the attack of small arms such as swords and spears, these walls were made mostly of stone or by stamping earth and gravel between board frames. King Zheng of Qin conquered the last of his opponents and unified China as the first emperor of the Qin dynasty in 221 BC. Intending to impose centralized rule and prevent the resurgence of feudal lords, he ordered the destruction of the sections of the walls that divided his empire among the former states. To position the empire against the Xiongnu people from the north, however, he ordered the building of new walls to connect the remaining fortifications along the empire's northern frontier. Build and move on was a central guiding principle in constructing the wall, implying that the Chinese were not erecting a permanently fixed border. The Great Wall concept was revived again under the Ming in the 14th century, and following the Ming army's defeat by the Oirats in the Battle of Tumu. The Ming had failed to gain a clear upper hand over the Mongol tribes after successive battles, and the long-drawn conflict was taking a toll on the empire. The Ming adopted a new strategy to keep the nomadic tribes out by constructing walls along the northern border of China. Acknowledging the Mongol control established in the Ordos Desert, the wall followed the desert's southern edge instead of incorporating the bend of the Yellow River. The Great Wall of China cannot be seen by the naked human eye from the moon. Even though the myth is thoroughly debunked, it is still ingrained in popular culture. The apparent width of the Great Wall from the moon would be the same as that of a human hair viewed from 3 kilometers away. Leroy Chiao, a Chinese-American astronaut, took a photograph from the International Space Station that shows the wall. It was so indistinct that the photographer was not certain he had actually captured it. Based on the photograph, the China Daily later reported that the Great Wall can be seen from space, with the naked eye, under favorable viewing conditions, if one knows exactly where to look.
She remembered seeing me sitting nearby with a book while pretending not to watch her. And somehow, in the middle of the hottest night of the year, Emily had decided that if she could enter that water once more, maybe she could prove to herself that losing someone did not mean she had to stop living. I told her to wait while I went inside for towels. When I returned, she was sitting on the edge with her feet in the water, still fully dressed. For one terrible second, panic rushed through me. The exhaustion in her face reminded me of my own darkest nights after Sarah died, when the pain felt so heavy that I could not imagine another morning. I sat beside Emily and stayed there quietly. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of moving deeper into the pool, she started crying. Not graceful tears. Not the silent kind people hide from strangers. She cried with her shoulders shaking, with her hands covering her face, with years of held-back fear and loneliness finally breaking free. She cried because she had been angry at Daniel for leaving her. She cried because she felt guilty whenever she smiled. She cried because people kept telling her that time would heal everything, yet every day seemed to prove that time only taught her new ways to miss him. And then, without warning, I began to cry too. I told her that I still talked to Sarah sometimes when I was alone. I told her I still bought her favorite cereal by mistake. I told her there were nights when I woke up reaching for her and spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling. For the first time since either of us had lost someone, we were not trying to make grief look acceptable. We were simply admitting that it hurt. Emily slowly slipped farther into the pool until the water reached her waist. Her clothes clung to her hair became wet, and for the first time that night, she smiled. It was only a small smile, fragile and uncertain, but it was real. I stayed outside the water at first, watching her float beneath the moonlight. Then she reached toward me. I had not entered the pool since Sarah died. Every instinct told me to stay away. The memories were waiting there. Sarah's laughter. Her wet footprints across the patio. The way she used to splash me when I sat too close. But Emily's hand remained extended, and suddenly I understood something I had forgotten. Memories were not always chains. Sometimes they were invitations. So I stepped in. The water was cooler than I expected. For a moment, the shock took my breath away. Then Emily laughed, and the sound moved through the silent backyard like something returning to life. I laughed too. We floated there, two broken people in ordinary clothes, beneath a sky that had finally begun to gather clouds. That was the first night we spoke honestly about the people we had lost. It was not the last. Over the following weeks, the heatwave continued, and sometimes, after midnight, Emily would knock on my door again. Other nights, I would switch on the pool lights, and she would notice from her window. We never planned it. There was no schedule and no expectation. Sometimes we swam. Sometimes we only sat beside the water and talked. She told me about Daniel's terrible jokes and his dream of opening a small bookstore. I told her about Sarah's habit of singing while burning dinner and her belief that every sad person deserved at least one good surprise. Slowly, Emily began opening her curtains again. Then she returned to her garden. I helped her repair the old fence, and she helped me clear the leaves from the pool. We did not fall in love. At least, not in the way people often expect lonely widows and widowers to in stories. What grew between us was something quieter and, perhaps, even more necessary. We became witnesses to each other's survival. On days when grief pulled one of us backward, the other simply showed up. Months later, on the first cool evening of autumn, Emily invited me into her house for tea. It was the first time I had stepped inside since Daniel's funeral. His photographs were still there, but the house no longer felt frozen in time. A window was open. Music played softly. Fresh flowers stood on the table. Emily looked different. Not because she had forgotten him. Because she had finally